Hello and a warm welcome. Hope all of you are doing well today. Human intelligence is marvelously complex. The researchers have relied on intelligence quotient or IQ test to measure both what people know and how quickly they can solve problems using reasoning. But IQ tests alone don't necessarily account for the full range of your thinking abilities. In recent years, the concept of emotional intelligence has emerged. Today, we will learn more about emotional intelligence from a profound speaker, Mike George, who is joining us from UK. Mike is an author of 16 books focused on self-understanding and spiritual intelligence. With insight, wisdom, and humor, he brings together the three key strands of the 21st century: self-awareness, emotional intelligence, and continuous learning. So I shall now hand over the platform to Mike. Hello and good morning.
Hi, Jabeen. Thanks very much for the introduction. It's good. It's actually, it's unlearning, not learning.
Oh, sorry about that.
Don't worry, it's fine. It's okay. It's just a good point to make at this stage, is
Yes.
that awakening, which really is why we're all here, really, to be more aware, is a process of unlearning more than it is learning. But then again, you do a bit of both. You do a bit of both. It's good. So a very warm welcome to everyone, and thank you very much for tuning in. Nice sunny day here in the UK. I hope it's the same for you. And I think you know our topic for today is this idea, this hot topic. I think it's still quite hot, otherwise known as emotional intelligence. For those of you who don't know me, you will perhaps recognize something called stress, otherwise known as emotional suffering. And that's what I experienced about, I guess around about 35, 40 years ago. I woke up one day and realized that I was very stressed out and kind of gave everything up and went to look outside and inside just to see what I had to change in my life. And I began to realize the one thing they don't teach us, possibly the reason why you're here right now, is to fill the whole of our education, the big gap in our education, formal or informal. And that gap is called self-understanding. And if I don't understand me, then it's quite hard to manage me, because I really don't know how my energy, the energy of my body maybe a little bit, but not the energy of my consciousness. And that's where I do all my learning, unlearning, do my thinking, do my vision making, my decision making. It's where it all begins, in our consciousness. And yet no one teaches us how it actually works and how it operates and how to manage it, how to be the master of it. And I think that's one of the reasons why emotional intelligence has become such a popular topic over the past, I guess, 10, 15 years, is that we've realized that we need to learn more about this energy called emotion. Emotions that we feel, the difference between feelings and emotions, and where emotion comes from, how it interferes with my thoughts, my decisions, my relationships, well, everything in my life, basically. So the purpose of this session today is just to give you a kind of overview as to what EQ is exactly, and how to really kind of understand it a little bit more deeply. So I think, as usual, any questions you have, just feel free to put them in the chat box as I progress through these ideas, and feel free to make suggestions. If there's something I'm missing, feel free to give me a hard time. Feel free to ask any question you like. Actually, any question about anything. except history and geography. I don't do history and geography, but you can ask about anything else. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to share with you a PowerPoint, share my screen with you, and it's just a kind of step-by-step introduction into what emotional intelligence is, for me anyway. And you might not find exactly the same ideas and thoughts everywhere else, and it'll be up to you to do your own research. But essentially, this is where I'm kind of coming from. This is my understanding of it, and let's see if it works for you, to see if it makes sense to you. So let me share my screen with you, and we'll make our little journey through the territory of EQ, emotional intelligence. And it begins really with intelligence, actually. What is intelligence? Intelligence is using what I know in an accurate way. Yeah, not right or wrong way, as I'll explain in a moment, but an accurate way, at the accurate moment in relation to the material situation that often includes other people, the material situation in front of me, or the events in my consciousness. In other words, the story that I'm running in my mind. So it's about using what I know in an accurate way. Yeah, the right moment, the right situation, the right person, etc. So with that understanding of what intelligence is, we then look at the 4 levels basically of intelligence. There's many levels of intelligence according to many of the so-called experts, but essentially you can break them down into 4. And the first is rational intelligence, and rational intelligence is what we learned at school. You know how we might even have said someone, I can't make a decision. I need to think this through. I need more time. It's noisy, takes time. It takes a lot of energy. Your mind is busy all the time. And what you're using is a rational ability to arrive at a decision. So you know that if you step in front of a car, you'll damage the car. Well, sorry, other way around. The car will damage you. So you know that. You're not ignorant of that. Yeah. So you make a decision to walk across the road between the cars. So you're using your rational intelligence. That's a very simple example of it. And then there's intuitive intelligence. Yeah, and intuitive intelligence is not when you think this through. It doesn't take time or energy. It happens instantly. It's just a feeling that you have that comes from deep within, and that feeling then turns into a thought. And that feeling is like a wave of energy that comes from the core of your being. I'm going this way and not that way. And you might say, Mike, why are you going this way, not that way? And Mike says, I don't know why. It just feels right. Just feels right. There's no reason, no rationality. It just feels right. So in a sense, the intuitive intelligence is using your feelings. Sometimes you will hear what I have to say today and you'll go, oh, it makes sense. I don't know why. I recognize that. And aha, now I understand that. Why did I forget that? And it's like you're drawing on your deepest intuitive intelligence. Intuition, inner tutor, your inner tutor. In other words, you already know everything I'm about to say or share with you. It's just that you're not aware that you already know it. You've covered it over in your consciousness. And then we come to emotional intelligence. And emotional intelligence is essentially, it's when your emotion takes over and you start reacting to things. And wherever you react to something, it means you are not in control. The emotion is in control. The emotion is arising from within your consciousness from a recording. And the difference between emotional and rational intelligence, it's very simple, is that you have the academic professor standing in front of 500 people, chalk and blackboard all day long. That professor will explain the most complex formula. Brilliant mind, brilliant rational mind. But you take that professor to a cocktail party and stand them 6 inches from another person, and you will notice they cannot do it. Their emotions are raging out of control. They're not sensitive to the emotions of others. They say the wrong thing, the wrong moment. And so they have very high IQ, rational intelligence, but very low EQ, emotional intelligence. Yeah, and so you see the difference very simply between the two. And so the difference between emotional intelligence and the other two levels of intelligence is that when you're emotional, actually, you are not intelligent. Yeah, the emotion gets in the way. It interferes. Yeah, it clouds. You can't think straight. You can't make good quality decisions. And the energy that you give to others is, well, it's a bit mixed, really. So when you're emotional, you cannot be intelligent. So it's a little bit like an oxymoron, but you won't read that everywhere. Yeah, and so you have to kind of dig deep, and we'll do that a little bit today. We'll dig deep into what EQ is exactly. And then the fourth level of intelligence is sometimes known as spiritual intelligence. Coming very fast now, well, at least the theory about it, basically speeded up by internet communication. And it's this idea that how you see yourself, how you make meaning in life, how you respond to the world around you through your understanding is going to be what defines your spiritual intelligence. In other words, someone with high spiritual intelligence will never be shocked by anything, will never be surprised by anything. Yeah, because they are able to ascribe meaningfulness to everything that goes around them. Yeah, so nothing can surprise them. They know the meaning of everything that happens in the world outside and the world inside. That's why it's still quite a rare intelligence. Nothing to do with religion or belief systems or dogma, etc. Just that ability from the core of your being to stay stable in every situation, in every relationship. That's a little bit of a description of what SQ is. So these are the four essential levels of intelligence, and today, as you know, we're exploring this idea of EQ, or emotional intelligence. So there are four principles in really understanding how EQ works. Number one, consciousness is what you are. You know, I'm always going to come back to that, and you're not what you see in the bathroom mirror in the morning, which is good news, really. Yeah, consciousness is what you are. In other words, the animating energy of form. You know, whether you call it soul, spirit, being, psyche, the I that says I am, it doesn't matter what you call it, but consciousness, very different from the form, the body you occupy, different energy, is what you are. So I'm always going to be speaking from that understanding, that principle. Self-responsibility is what you need to realize. And this is the first hurdle everyone has to get over, that I find it the hardest principle for everyone to understand, is that every thought, emotion, feeling, attitude, behavior that you create is created by you and you alone. Yeah? In other words, you are 100% responsible for everything you think and feel. In other words, we are taught the opposite. We are taught to believe, keyword belief, that other people, situations, and events make me feel. Yeah, no, they don't. I do. Now, this is quite easy to talk about in theory, but not so easy to practice. But again, it's always going to be something that we return to. Principle number 4 is this idea of curiosity, and this is what you need to practice. And today you're here because you're curious. Fantastic. But even after today, there has to be, from the heart of your being, a genuine curiosity to understand how you work, how the world works, how other people are relating to you, how you're relating to them. There's got to be this genuine curiosity. Sounds easy, but you've got so much information coming at you from so many screens now, from technology, that you've allowed them to do the work for you. Yeah, and this is called laziness. How do I know? Because I was lazy most of my life, and I didn't realize that that's why I was stressed, unhappy, etc. And then the fourth principle, and really this is relevant to our time today, is emotion is like a solar flaring. I don't know if you've seen these images of the sun. You know, you see the energy, and I've just put a picture here. See the energy flaring out. This is what emotion does. It's a disturbance. It flares out, just like the surface of the sunshine. And then the energy falls back in. A little bit of that energy goes off into the universe, but most of it merges back in. And that's why you cannot stay emotional. Yeah, usually you come back to your centered, relaxed, easy self. Yeah, and so it's useful just for me to say that right now and right throughout this presentation, I'm going to do my best. And I don't want you to interpret that emotion is good or bad. It's not right or wrong. It's not that you should or shouldn't be emotional. We're here to understand how emotion is created, not to judge it, yeah, but to understand what it is, how we actually create it. Yeah. So I'll just slow down occasionally and let you soak in those ideas for what they're worth. And they might not be worth a lot for you, but so these are the 4 principles, and these 4 principles are kind of like essential, not just for understanding EQ, but really everything if we are going to waken up in this world of sleepiness. So where does emotion come from? Now, emotion for me, and this is just for me, arises from the ego, all emotion. And it's useful for me, and I'll say this a few times. I don't consider love, happiness, joy, etc. to be emotions. They are not emotions. For me, they're natural states of being. Yeah, don't call them emotions. I don't call them emotions. As soon as you call these emotions, then you get everything all mixed up. And then you think, well, it's just all natural. It's all easy. No point in me doing anything. But no, emotion arises from the ego. And the ego is created when you, the conscious being, the self, whatever you want to call consciousness, attaches yourself, itself, and identifies yourself, itself, consciousness, with any mental image, idea, belief, or concept. In other words, what's on your mind. Yeah, you are not your mind. You have a mind, but you are not your mind. Yeah. So the ego is created when the self loses itself in what's on the mind, and thereby creates a false sense of self. Yeah, because you identify with everything which is on your mind. The ego is created when you build your sense of identity out of what you are not. Yeah, and that's usually something on your mind. Idea, image, story, my name, my country, or whatever. Yeah, so this for me is a kind of simple definition of ego. It's a false sense of self. So how does this actually work? And it's necessary to see the mechanism in yourself to understand how it actually works. So imagine that this page here is your consciousness, this radiant energy of consciousness. Within your mind, you have a screen called a mind. Sorry, within your consciousness, you have a screen called your mind. And you create this screen whenever you need to give form to your thoughts. Thought forms. If you didn't think, you wouldn't need a mind. And so you create a mind, in other words, a place in your consciousness where you give form to your thoughts. I'm not saying that's right or wrong, that's just what we do. So outside on the road is the object, is the car. Now the car exists in 2 places at once. It's outside, but it's also in your mind. You bring the image of the car into your consciousness through your eyes. Then you put the image of the car up on the screen of your mind. So now there's 2 cars, one on the road outside and one in your mind as an image. But then what you do, and this is where the mistake begins, is you go into your mind. And then you lose your sense of self in the image of the car. In other words, you become limited by the shape. You fit yourself into the shape of the image, the contour, the outline, the image. And so you make yourself very small and limited by fitting yourself, by identifying yourself with the image of the car. So I go into my mind, then I lose myself in the image of the car on my mind. Yeah, this is called attachment. Yeah, this is called attachment. This is where we get attached. This is how attachment happens. It's not when you hold on to something with your hand, because you're not your hand, but it's when you, in your consciousness, lose your sense of self in what's on your mind. Yeah, now you will need to see this for yourself before you really go, oh God, what am I doing? Before you actually realize it. And all I can do is share the theory of it with you. Then when someone damages the car on the outside, in other words, they walk up to your car and they push a coin down the side, they scrape all the paintwork, it's as if they are damaging you, because that's when you take it personally. Ah, you damaged my car. You've caused my car to be damaged. And it's as if you are damaged. And so this is why we take things personally. So you become angry. So in your consciousness, you give birth to anger. In other words, you distort the energy of your consciousness from being nice and relaxed and peaceful and very open and how are you doing, into how dare you touch my car? How dare you damage my car? I'm so angry. You've damaged my car. And so it's as if they damage you. And that's where you are giving birth to your own emotional suffering. Yeah, so all emotional suffering happens in this way. Whether you're attached to a car, an object, it doesn't really matter, but this is where all emotional suffering has its origin. Yeah. So if you don't want to suffer, then it's necessary to be detached or to have a relationship of non-attachment with the object called the car. Yeah. So let me do that again, because I know it's quite complex. And if you're seeing it for the first time, then it just takes a little bit of understanding. In your consciousness, you have a mind. It's like a screen. It's the metaphor of the screen. That's all it is, a metaphor. And on the screen, you put objects that seem to exist outside, but you give them existence on the inside by taking the image of the object, putting it up on the screen of your mind, but then you go into your mind and then you lose yourself in the image. It's as if you're sitting in the room and you're going, oh, my nice new car, I'm driving my new car down the road. You're talking to somebody, but really in your mind, you're in your new car. And so you're in what's on your mind. So you go into your mind, then you go into the image of the car in your mind, you lose your sense of self in the image, and this is called attachment. Then when someone damages the car, it's as if they damage me, and that's why we take it personally. We don't take it personally when someone else's car is damaged, but it's my car. And so we get angry. So we generate anger. We believe that the other person makes me angry by damaging the car, but that's not true. Belief is not the truth. The truth is it's me that's generating the anger. That's why the principle of self-responsibility is essential to realize. So if you don't want to suffer, if you don't want to be attached, if you want to take responsibility and change, then be detached. So if someone damages your car, no problem. If you're detached, you have a relationship of non-attachment. Someone damages the car, no problem. If you think about it, that's just reality. Cars are designed to be scratched, kicked, rusted, and get bumped and dented and crashed, and then go to the scrap heap. That's the reality of life. But as long as you're getting angry or upset or worried about that, then you're having an argument with reality. You're making yourself suffer. So, what is emotion? Emotion is a disturbance in the energy of your consciousness when the object of attachment, in this case the car, is damaged. So the disturbance is called anger. Or when someone threatens you, yeah, or if someone moves something. If you're a perfectionist, you walk into the room and you say, who moved that? That should be here, it should be there. And so there's little irritation for a moment. It passes, but you generate that very briefly for a moment. Or it's lost. If you lost your car keys, I'm sure you've lost your car keys, and you feel the emotion of anxiety for a moment. And then the longer you lose your car keys, that anxiety turns into tension. And then suddenly you rediscover the car keys and you go, ah, and all that emotional disturbance disappears. Now, why is this hard for us? Because no one teaches us how to name the emotion that we generate whenever things that we believe are mine are damaged, threatened, moved, or lost. We don't have a language for it, really. Basic language. So what do we get attached to? Objects, people, beliefs. That's why you argue. Whenever you argue, it means you've heard their opinion. The core of their opinion is their belief, and you see it as a threat to your belief that you're attached to. And so you begin to argue. And there's two emotions which arise within you when you're arguing, a mixture of anger and fear. Anger that they don't agree, and fear that you might be wrong and they might be right. And that's why we argue. Or a memory. And if you ever noticed that when you share your memories, you never share the same memory in the same way twice. Yeah, it's always slightly different every time you share it, because you're deeply attached to ideas and images in there. But every time you bring it up into consciousness, conscious awareness, it's just a little bit different. I don't know if you've ever noticed that, but it's worth noticing. So there's a cycle that we all go around, an emotional cycle, and it begins with sadness. But the sadness doesn't stay. It turns into anger. And then the anger doesn't stay. It turns into fear. And fear then turns back into sadness. And this is why. It's called a cycle of suffering. We're all kind of lost to some degree or other in this cycle of suffering. Sadness always begins with loss. Even if someone insults me, it's as if I've lost what I thought they thought of me. So I've kind of lost my idea of what they thought of me. Yeah, I thought you liked me. Oh, you don't like me? Oh, so I'm kind of sad. Or when you go to your computer every morning and you realize you've only got 2 likes on your Facebook page instead of 20, you go, oh, I've lost 18 or whatever. And so sadness always follows a loss of some, or a perceived loss. But then that doesn't stay. It turns into anger as you look for someone to blame for your loss, as you project your suffering outwards. But the anger doesn't stay. It turns into fear, the fear that it might happen again in the future. So fear is always fear of loss in the future. Yeah, and it's usually imagination. Oh, what if I lose? Oh, what if I lose? Oh, what if this goes? Yeah, and sadness is always in the past. Sadness is always following loss. And then anger is usually in the present when you look for someone. Oh, what did you do? Why did you say that? And so we get trapped in this cycle of suffering for most of our lives because, and this all comes back to this one thing, because we believe we've lost something. Now, you only believe you've lost something because you believe you possess something. Yeah, this is why we keep saying, this is mine, that's mine, they're mine, that's going to be mine. I wish I had one of those. Oh, I'm going to have one of those. Yeah, haven't got it yet. Oh, what if I don't get one of those? You haven't got it yet, but you're already creating the fear of the loss of something you don't yet have. and we just fall into this trap unawarely, unknowingly. And so it's all because we believe we possess. But the truth is, nothing and no one is ever mine. You know, belief is not the truth. This is something that will occur to you if you awaken your curiosity and start doing your inner work. Belief is not the truth. The truth about belief is in the word belief. The being is lying to itself. Yeah. Yeah. I don't mean that always the content of the belief is wrong. I mean the very fact that we have a belief, an idea, a concept, and we hold on to it. We become attached to it. In other words, we're trying to make an idea, a concept static, but truth is never static. It's dynamic, it's open, yeah, it's fluid. And the truth, being in my trueness, means I'm dynamic, open, fluid. You know, and so I'm discerning between the two. So all emotions fit into one of these three categories. Fear is anxiety, worry, tension, terror. Sadness is melancholy, sorrow, separation, anger, irritation, frustration, etc. And so all of the emotions, the basic emotions, fall into one of these three families. Now, at the very heart of your consciousness is where you want to go. In other words, you want to be able to break the cycle and return to the heart of your being, because that's where you discover your innate feelings. Yeah, in other words, your natural state of being, which is peace, love, joy. You know, these are not emotions. These are natural state. You're not emotional when you're calm. You're not emotional when you genuinely care about, reach out and care towards someone. You're not emotional when you are happy. You know, we've learned to believe that we can only be happy when we get things and get people in our life. Yeah, but it's not when you get something that is responsible for your happiness. It's the ending of the agitation of desire. Yeah, that's real happiness. That's when the agitation of desire comes to an end, and then you don't even think about it. You just naturally are content, the deepest form of happiness. Now, what stops us coming back here? One of the reasons is we're all carrying a belief in our life, which stops us from being curious, from doing our inner work. And the belief is very simple. The belief is when we say to someone, well, you know, it's natural to be scared. Everyone's a bit fearful. It's natural to be sad. Yeah, everyone's a bit down. It's natural to be angry. I mean, these emotions, these are human nature. This is how we justify not doing anything about it until they become so intense and we have to. Yeah, but when do you ever see workshops and retreats with titles like "Come to the workshop and we'll make you the most fearful person for the rest of your life"? Come to this workshop and you'll be so sad and so depressed, and you will never be anything but sad and depressed the rest of your life. Come to this workshop and we'll show you how to be really, really angry and resentful. No, you don't, because we would say these workshops are unnatural. We go looking to restore our true nature, which is peaceful, which is loving, which is contented. So these are our natural feelings, and the spiritual journey is about restoring our awareness and our connection and our ability to be in these natural states. And when you are, you feel them. Yeah, you feel them. There's no disturbance. You feel them. So 3 families of emotion: fear, anger, and sadness. Yeah, and so most emotions that we're kind of day to day talk about or experience or create fall into one of these 3. And then guilt and shame is like a combination of all 3. If you sit quietly in a corner, you'll begin to notice there's a little strand of each one of these 3 emotions which make up guilt and shame. Yeah, this will be necessary in your process of curiosity. This will come back into your awareness. You'll begin to see it, if you examine it for yourself. Now, the problem is we are a little bit confused about our emotions. We confuse excitement with happiness. Usually when our mom and dad take us to our first circus, our first football match or whatever, they look down at us and they say, well, I'm excited and happy. Aren't you? Why are you not excited? You're not excited and happy? And then we go, yeah, I'm excited and really happy. And so that's when we learn to get happiness and excitement mixed up. And so we spend the rest of our life looking for some kind of excitement, which is stimulation, really, in order to be happy, because we believe we have to find our happiness outside, in some kind of stimulation. And so that's how we've been programmed, basically, brilliantly, by marketing, advertising, the entertainment industry, 2 great teachers, Hollywood and Bollywood have taught us, that we can't be happy unless we're excited. But this is a confusion. This is what's called emotional confusion. And it's what we're not taught at school, is that real happiness is not possible unless we are not excited. So whenever you read these emails, say, I'm really excited to tell you about this. I'm really excited to present this to you. I'm really excited for you to come and look and listen to us. It's not good. They are perpetrating the mythology that excitement is happiness, basically. Worry is confused with care. When mom says to the teenager, but you're 10 minutes late, you never called, you said you'd call, you didn't call me. And when we say to mom, but mom, stop worrying about me. I don't need you to worry about me. But mom says, but I worry because I care. But then worry is fear and care is love. And so these are the opposite ends of the spectrum, if you like. Worry is fear, care is love. So we get the two mixed up. You can't be loving and be fearful at the same time. So fear is confused with respect, like the bully on the playground. We really respect this person. No, we don't. We fear this person. So don't confuse respect with fear. I need to untangle these two. And sorrow is confused with love, especially when you go to the movies and you watch the romantic movie and you're crying halfway through the movie, you're crying at the end of the movie as they walk off into the sunset, and you believe that your tears are an expression, oh, aren't they lovely? And oh, darling, wish our relationship was so loveful. And yet I'm crying with great sorrow or sentimentality. I'm confusing it with love. No, it's not. Love is not sentimentality. It's not sorrow. It doesn't cry. And so it sounds a little bit harsh, but what happens is that these emotions, they generate exhaustion. And this is when we use the word, but I'm really passionate about this issue, which really means I'm angry about it. And whenever passion is confused with anger, then I'm going to need to rest. Whereas when passion is enthusiasm, it's very energizing. It doesn't drain. Anger drains your energy. You need to rest. When passion is enthusiastic, it's very energizing. It's uplifting. You don't need to rest afterwards. Fear is confused with happiness. It's when you go to the movies, you pay someone to frighten the living daylights out of yourself. You come out of the movie and you think, oh, I'm so happy I saw that movie. When's the next one? And yet you sat through the movie most of the time generating tension, worry, anxiety, fear. And so we confuse it with happiness. Sadness, we've done it already, is confused with loss. And so whenever you experience any one of these three, then you need a rest afterwards. You need to snooze because they're exhausting. And so I need to lie down. I need to lie down. So emotions are addictive and exhausting. Isn't it funny? Emotions are addictive. That's why we're always going for some stimulation. I want the new model. I want the new car. I want the new phone. It's like an addiction. They're addicted. Oh, I'm so happy. I've got it. And yet they're exhausting, because as soon as you have what you wanted, you fear losing it. You fear it being damaged. And then eventually you'll lose it. So there'll be sadness and there'll be et cetera, et cetera. And we're back in the cycle. So emotion is very contagious. As you know, you go to a crowd and emotion is everyone's emotion. Oh, it's fantastic. Oh, my team has just lost my team is winning. And so they're up and down and up and down. Why? Because they're attached to the team. They're identified with their team. And so attachment, identification, there's the ego. They're really just emoting because of their own ego. Oh, my team is winning. And then, of course, it happens in meetings, as you know. One person gets upset, and it's not long before the emotion passes around the circle and everyone's upset about something. Yeah, I agree. Or a person says, no, I don't agree. I don't agree with that. And so we start to argue. And then we know about relationships breaking down. And usually there's a very emotional period in the breakdown process. And I guess that's why the lawyers are having such a good time, basically. because there's so much of it, because we don't really understand where our emotions are coming from. We're projecting it onto the other person. So emotions are infectious and they are signs of dis-ease. When I'm emotional, I'm in a sign of dis-ease. So how do I transform emotional reaction into conscious response? And this is where our old friend awareness comes in. In other words, our curiosity. I've broken down the process a little bit into kind of stages, and it's very useful to sit quietly. And after the event, number one, is to go through the process. What was my perception? What did I think? What was the emotion I created? Now I know that the emotion wasn't created by the other person, it was created by me. And then I now also know, in theory at least, that it was arising because I was attached to something. I was building my sense of identity out of something I'm not. Now, what was that? And then what was the action? What did I do? And what was the outcome? What was the result? And so you'll use this process in retrospect after the event, after the room is empty and you're sitting quietly in the corner and you're just contemplating what happened there. So I'll just give you an example, a very simple example. My father tells my mother he's taking my brother to football match to see his favorite football team in Italy. So they have a fight. My mother gets very upset. In other words, very emotional. My perception, this is terrible. This is awful. I'm thinking about my father. What a selfish idea, Dad. You made my mother so upset. In other words, so emotional. So what was my emotion? My emotion was anger. I was angry at my father for doing what he did and causing my mother to become upset. At least I believed at that point he caused my mother to become upset. But we kind of now know that it's not my father that causes it. It's my mother that's generating it. I'll come back to that. So why? Because I'm attached to the image of happy family. And suddenly this image is shattered by this event that's taking place in front of me in the room outside. So the image I have in my mind of happy, harmonious mom and dad, shattered. Yeah, and that's why I'm taking it personally and generating anger. So what's my action? I withdraw my cooperation from my father, criticize everything he says, and I don't laugh at his jokes for 3 weeks, as you do when you're a teenager. Yeah, and so what's the outcome? My relationship with my father collapses. Outside, that's the external outcome, if you like. And inside, I feel terrible. Because how do I feel when I'm angry? I feel terrible. I don't feel happy when I'm angry. It's not possible. In other words, I'm suffering. So this is a reactive response. And the sign that it's a reaction is there's anger at my father. The emotion of anger is the sign that it's an emotional reaction. Therefore, the emotion, the disturbance in my consciousness is taking over. So I want to consciously respond, not become emotional, not suffer. So let's do the same event again. The event is the same, but this time I'm going to change my perception. My perception this time is going to be, what a great idea. And my thoughts are going to be, well done, Dad. You're going to take my brother to see his favorite football team. Fantastic. What a great idea. What a generous thing to do. I could have as many thoughts as I like. And so there's no anger at my father. I'm happy for my brother. He's going to see his favorite football team. I appreciate my father's gesture to take my brother to see his favorite football team. And here's my mother over here in a lot of emotional suffering. What do I do with mom? Oh, mom, when you're fixed, let's talk. No, I go and sit with my mom and I ask and listen, ask and listen. This is what compassion, empathy does. I empathize with my mother. She's suffering. And as she tells me what emotions she is feeling, gradually she calms down. I'm sure you've done this for a friend. You've been a therapist for a friend and you've just listened to their unhappiness, their emotional suffering, and gradually they might even have said afterwards, thanks for listening. Thanks for being here for me. Yeah, and so this is why all emotion dies under observation. So by asking and listening, you're giving your mother or whoever a chance to press out, to express the emotions they are feeling. Yeah, the emotions they are feeling. Yeah, and as they press them out, they're pressing them away as they're expressing them. Yeah, and so eventually they calm down. They begin to see and say, I'm really angry. If I see and say, I'm really angry, I'm saying there's anger here in me and I'm feeling it, I'm touching it, I'm perceiving it. If I keep coming away from it, it begins to die. That's why all emotion dies under observation. That's why the first step of any meditation practice will be this idea of detached, coming away from what's on my mind, and then observing it. Detached observation. This is what we need to learn to practice on the inside, to begin to see for myself, not just believe more information. Please don't believe a word I'm saying, but arouse that curiosity, do your own research, and see for yourself. So there's no ego. I'm not attached to anything. Yeah, basically, I'm free on the inside. I'm not attached to anything. I'm just being naturally happy for my brother, appreciating my father, compassion for my mother. And so I'm able to choose my feelings towards each relationship in the situation. Whereas before, I couldn't choose those feelings. I was just busy with my anger, busy with my own disturbance that I was feeling in my own consciousness, not able to generate these feelings for these people in my life at that moment. So what action do I do? Help my brother pack his bag, go to the airport. When he comes back, tell me all about it. I got to sit and listen to my mother, ask her lots of questions. How do you feel? How do you do? Etc. Etc. And then what's the outcome? Great relationship with father, mother, and brother. Hey, the relationships are on every level. And so it's kind of like the opposite outcome of what I felt before. I feel great. I feel fantastic because these relationships are now back on track, or they're on track. So you see the difference, and it's all because I change one thing, and it's this thing called perception, or my interpretation of the event. And this is where we're all kind of challenged, because your perception really is shaped by your beliefs and your belief system. Yeah, and we've been programmed, conditioned, if you like, with certain beliefs from mum, dad, education, culture, media. They feed us all these beliefs all the time. We go, oh yeah, I believe that. Oh, that must be right because the media says it. Oh yeah, okay. And so we're carrying a set of beliefs which shape our perception or interpretation of what's going on. And this is why your perception is your reality. Yeah, I'm sure you've heard that phrase before. That's why everyone's perception of the same event is different. You go to watch a movie with someone and you come out and have a coffee afterwards, you talk about the movie and you might say, well, I didn't see that. And they'll say to you, well, I didn't see that. And so were we watching the same movie? Yes, we were. But we had a different perception, different interpretation. Yeah. And so your perception is your choice. And that's why I'm curious. I'm really curious. What was my perception here that made me suffer? Because the anger is arising from the perception. So how do I perceive the situation and not generate suffering for myself, emotional suffering for myself? That's always the challenge. Yeah. So, hey, I think that's enough for me. That's enough words. Let me stop here and just see if there's any no, there's no questions. There's one thing in the chat box. So Jabin, do you have any questions at your end, or is it just emptiness?
Actually, we do have questions here.
Okay.
You ready for the questions?
Yeah, sure. Go for it.
Okay. So the first question is, should schools teach emotional intelligence? And connected to that is, how do you raise a child to be emotionally intelligent?
Okay, so first of all, the education system in most countries, I don't know about every country in the world, up until now has not really included EQ as part of the educational process. That's beginning to happen, or has been in the past 10 years, I guess, in small ways has been coming into the educational system, small formal ways. But not in a very deep, not in a very broad way, not with a deep understanding like I've shared with you just now. Just really about raising children's awareness and to help them cultivate a language around emotions. In other words, the ability to name the emotion that you are feeling. Yeah, because emotions and feelings are, there's two different things going on here. How do you raise a child to be more emotionally intelligent? Only by becoming emotionally intelligent, emotionally aware, really. That's what emotional intelligence is. It's only when you become aware of the emotions and how you're creating them and why you're creating them, how you're expressing them, that you will be able to show the child how to be without an emotional disturbance. So children don't go to seminars and books, read books, etc., etc. They learn by watching and feeling, by the example of the parent and by feeling what the parent is going through themselves. So in a sense, you're teaching them at every moment, in every sentence, in every gesture, and every word, how that child themselves should be, because that's who they're learning from, mostly is from you, from the parent. So it's necessary for you to really understand and for you to be the master of the emotions that you feel, if that makes sense. That's then what teaches them most.
Basically, being a good example, so
Yeah,
teach. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. Our next question is, does one's emotional intelligence grow with age?
We wish. I wish it did. Mostly it's the other way around. And it's because the older we become, the more set in our ways. Up until now, you've been in the habit of making yourself emotional and believing that, well, it's natural, it's human nature to be angry, to be upset, to be sad. Everyone else has been sad all my life, so it's always natural. And I've been creating sadness and fear and anger all my life in my own way. And so those habits have been laid down. That pattern has been laid down. It's become deeper and deeper and deeper. So the older you are, in physical age, if you like, and the longer you've been around, the more entrenched they tend to be. No, it's not the same for everyone. And this is why if you visualize or meditate with children, it's much easier with them because they've got less stuff, program, conditioning within their consciousness than we do. So the older you become, you might become more mellow, in other words, calmer for various reasons, because you've realized, life is just a game, it's just a play, and nothing really that important in life. When you've got, oh yeah, this is it, and so you relax into your life, and so this mellowness might take over with age. That happens definitely, but essentially, it really is dependent on the individual.
There's a connection. There's a question connected to the one about children. With
Okay.
age, one becomes more wise based on experiences. Is it apt to teach the emotional intelligence at that stage, as they may not be able to be ready to accept that concept? They are, after all, on their journey.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it depends what you mean by wisdom. I mean, some people call, the wisdom of life experience. It's still not accurate. It's not as accurate as it could be. That's one issue. The thing about teaching children is once again, it's not about teaching them so much. It's about showing them. Yeah, and that means it's necessary for me to understand. In other words, to become more aware of why, of where, of how I'm making myself emotional, upset, fearful, sad, angry. It's about becoming aware of that. Yeah. And so then today, you don't react to a situation that you used to react emotionally to yesterday. And then the child that's around you says, "Oh, it's something," or someone, whoever, doesn't have to be a child, it could be anyone. They say, "You're not reacting. So you're very calm. What's the problem? Are you okay?"
Mm.
And that's the moment they're open to understanding a little bit more. And so you mustn't pour everything. I mean, I've made the mistake in a sense of pouring everything out in 40 minutes, and you will retain 1%. Yeah, and so that's why I keep saying it's necessary for you to be curious, to not just believe what I say, but to go into this subject, which is really to really understand yourself, become more aware of what's going on within yourself. And then as that becomes your natural expression, that shapes how you respond to the world. People are watching, kids are watching, and they go, "Oh, wow, you're very calm. You don't emotionally react to anyone. You used to, but you don't. So why is that? What is it? Is there something you know that I don't know?" And so you're inviting that kind of response, as opposed to, "I know about emotional intelligence. I know how to go out there, and I'm going to fix you. And have you sit down and you listen to me. I know the way." That's me trying to control people. Can't do that. You can't. You can't. You just got to let people be as they are. Be as they are.
Thank you. You mentioned about the different types of intelligence. What about social intelligence?
Yeah, social intelligence is connected to EQ as well, and social intelligence means relationships, basically. It all means relationships, but how you get on, how you connect, how you socialize or don't socialize, reasons for not socializing, etc. And so it's like an aspect of EQ, and essentially the literature on EQ today includes something called social skills. And then that's been branched off, and it's got its own platform now, and so you can go on courses and seminars and workshops and learn social intelligence. There's whole books around social intelligence, but it's all kind of connected, basically. Yeah, just first of all, understand, your own emotions, and how, where, why they are created, and then they'll begin to influence your socialization processes quite naturally.
Okay, there are a few messages here that I will read it out to you. Maybe you would like to add something. When I perceive events on a positive light, always, maybe I think what the person means to say is when I perceive events on a positive way, sometimes it is a blind belief that makes me have wrong decisions or unfavorable consequences, and it's not the reality. How do I confirm it? Not sure if I'm
No,
doing
no, it's okay.
justice to the question.
That's okay. If there's any dis-ease, so disease happens to the physical body, dis-ease occurs in your consciousness. If there's any dis-ease, in other words, emotional suffering in your consciousness, it's a signal that you are creating what is not natural. Yeah. In other words, there's something you need to change. Stress, simple definition of stress, is a messenger which is saying there's something I need to change. Not something in the world, not something that someone else is doing or saying, something I need to change. They just said what they were saying, they're just doing what they're doing. But I respond uneasily, with uneasiness, with dis-ease. I don't like that. Or I'm really angry. Oh, I'm really scared. And so as soon as you have that reaction towards anything, it means you need to learn and change. That's the signal, basically. It's not positive or negative, good or bad. It's just the way you are right now. You're reacting emotionally right now because of the conditioning up until this point. From mum, dad, culture, media, whatever. It doesn't really matter where it came from. It's just a set of beliefs you're carrying right now. And those beliefs are the root cause of your dis-ease. So now I need to go and do my Sherlock Holmes and really understand myself. Now, what is the belief I'm carrying that made me react emotionally in that way? So once you've got the belief, then I need to know, what is the truth? That is going to allow me to maintain my natural state of being. My natural state of being is calm, it's easiness, it's lovefulness, it's how I am as a natural human being. How do I get back to that? How do I center myself in that? What is the truth I need to realize that will bring me back to that? And essentially what I'm describing is what's sometimes called the spiritual journey, or the journey of awakening, or realization, self-realization. Essentially, that's what I'm talking about, really. So you don't do it overnight. You certainly don't do it on a lecture or a call or a presentation or even a weekend. This is an ongoing process.
Okay, we still have a few. Is it okay? Do you have the time?
Yeah.
Okay. If someone wants to measure their EQ, which type of questions can help us see where we stand in terms of understanding our EQ? And there is another question which is similar to that. How do you interview someone for EQ or emotional intelligence?
How do you, what someone?
How do you interview someone, maybe for a job position?
Yes. Yeah. Emotional intelligence is not quantifiable in that sense. I mean, there's lots of personality tests and what have you outside which try to quantify, but you're in the territory of the quality of what you're creating, not the quantity of what you're creating. It's a function of consciousness, which is the territory of quality. What's the quality of your thinking? What's the quality of your ideas? What's the quality? All the philosophers down through the ages, you've actually bumped into this question, and just about everyone found there isn't an answer to it in that sense. Quantities, it's about numbers, it's about measuring, and so that happens in the practical world outside. But the world in your consciousness is about the quality of your peacefulness. Some people it's very shallow kind of quality. Other people it's very deep, very deeply peaceful inside. And so, what's the difference? Where does one begin and one? It's unquantifiable. So don't try to quantify it, but begin to understand. Begin to notice, be aware of the quality of your being. In a conversation, in an interview with someone, then you will only be able to get an intuitive sense of the quality of someone's awareness of their emotions according to your awareness of your emotional state, because they just serve as a mirror. You can only, it's like reading a book. You can only break even 50-50 in reading a book, because a self-help book, because everything in the book you already know. It's just awakening. When you say, oh, that's a good book, that just means that you recognize what you were being told through the words on the page. Oh yeah, I get that. Oh, that's good. Oh yeah, I forgot about that. And so you're not learning anything new, not learning anything you didn't already know. It's just you're seeing it in a different way, maybe. And so it's like the same when you're meeting someone, is you're really learning about yourself, in the mirror of that relationship. And so according to your level of awareness of your emotions and where they come from, how they're caused, how they're created, how they influence you and your reactions, then that's only through those parameters are you able to assess the other. So I have to be humble enough to say, well, I'm looking in a mirror here. There's a nice little phrase, what you spot is what you've got. You can't spot it unless you've got it. Yeah. So just a little an aside to that, in today's world, this highly technological world that's going to become even more highly technological, is most large organizations, they don't go looking as they used to for people with high academic qualifications, high rational intelligence. They're much more interested in people with a good EQ, emotional intelligence. Reason? Because they want to retain the talent. They want to maintain the top talent, the cleverest people, the best people in their organization. And for that, you need good emotional intelligence. In other words, you need to be able to connect, be sensitive, empathize, build relationships with people. And the reason why they want the person who can do that now in an organization is that this is the time and history when we can go home in the evening, hand in our resignation, put a laptop on our kitchen table and have a global business in 2 hours. I'm being a bit simplistic, but it's so easy now to set up your own enterprise. And so more and more top talent have been leaving organizations. Well, not really leaving the organization, but leaving their manager, their leader. Well, I don't get it. Why do I have to work with him? I have to see him every day. I do my own thing. And so they can more easily go and do their own thing, set up their own business with a computer and technology. And that's why large organizations are recruiting people who get on with people to hold on to the talented individuals who have good relationships through their emotional awareness, yeah, of that person, their sensitivity, their empathy in that relationship. So yes, you're seeing this value for EQ going through the roof still.
Okay, we have two questions which, in my opinion, are quite similar or interlinked. One is a guru or coach around mentioned that getting rid of anger is not wise, but anger is necessary to bring change and motivate individuals to create a new reality by being pushed to make changes and by being an active being. The energy of anger needs to be focused in the right way and be used to our advantage. This is what was mentioned. And the next one is some belief that a little stress is good for performance. What do you have to say about this?
Well, immediately listening to, and I've heard these ideas before, but my immediate response to both ideas is they are both nonsense. I don't mean that in a derogatory way. I mean, they're nonsense. For me, the guru, whoever he is, hasn't realized yet that whenever you're angry, you're being violent. Anger is violence. Doesn't matter what level you create it at. There's no good. There's no, I'm using the word good. I'm trying to stay away from the duality, but there's nothing healthy. There's nothing that's going to generate well-being, the wellness of your being, whenever you generate anger. You're being violent. Now, just on the end of that is that I need to understand the process of relationship. When you're angry at someone or something, it's not them you're angry at, it's your version of them. Yeah. Remember, everyone is in two places at once. Yeah, they might be out there, but it's your version in here that is the primary version, the one you're relating to. It's how you've created them. And if you get angry at your version in here, then you're attacking yourself. Yeah, you're sabotaging yourself, your own consciousness. Notice when you're angry, can't think straight, can't make good quality decisions, don't relate well with others when they want to go away. This guy's always angry. Keep him away. I don't want to talk to him. And so your relationships are going to need repairing a lot of the time. So somebody will say, well, anger is a motivator. This is their way of justifying getting angry. Yeah, and so this is the belief that we're carrying, which is stopping us from understanding why and how not to be violent towards within ourselves. Yeah. But if you need to believe that anger is your motivator, that's okay. I'm not going to say don't or whatever, But the most important thing for me is to understand the process, the dynamic by which you are getting angry. And anger can be boiled down to one thing. I am not getting what I want. You are not doing what I want. You are not being the way I want. I want, I want, I want. So it's actually a very selfish emotion. It's like the baby throwing the toys out of the pram. And so you can keep doing that if you want, but no problem. It doesn't bother me. But for me, my understanding is that it's emotional suffering. I'm making myself suffer. I don't need to get angry. It's a waste of time and energy. And if ever I get angry, I need to recover. So for me, nonsense, not nonsense, but nonsense does not make sense for me. But I understand people who hold that belief.
Okay, we have an interesting question on YouTube. How do you work or deal with pro emotions that come not during the situation, but after?
Yes, yeah. They often come after the situation. And that's because when you sit down and you're allowing your imagination, you're telling the story of the event that just happened, and then you're blaming someone. Oh, they said something. Oh, I'm so angry. Or oh my God, oh, did they really say that? I'm so scared that might happen if they said that. And so yeah, so really, instead of the event happening outside, the event in the moment, the event is happening in my mind as I create a story. Yeah. Now, if you're aware, you'll notice that as you create the story of the event that just happened, and that you become emotional towards what just happened, you'll notice that it's usually always fear. The fear that the implications of what just happened will be A, B, and C, and that I will lose something. It'll be the fear of the loss of something. Reputation, an object, an opportunity, it doesn't really matter what it is. It could be tangible or intangible, but fear is always the fear of losing something. So the event has happened, you sit quietly, and you then interpret the event, and you interpret in such a way that you generate the fear of even more in the future, losing something later. Did they mean to say that? Oh, I mean, I'm going to lose something. I mean, I'm going to lose the job or lose the opportunity. Did they really mean to say that? And so it's because I'm recreating the event in my mind as a story, running the story, and then generating fear from the story. So that means I need to realize, and this is not easy, this is challenging, but it'll happen the more aware you become. I need to realize I have nothing to lose. Yeah. And that's because nothing is ever possessed by me. Everything comes and goes. People come and go, objects come and go, clothes come and go, money comes and goes, jobs come and go, thoughts come and go, feelings come and go. Everything comes and goes. That's the reality of life. Yeah. But what do we spend our life doing? Trying to hold on, trying to stop the river from flowing, if you like, the river of life. We try and dam the river. And we spend probably our entire life doing that and not realizing that our suffering is coming from, oh, I don't like, hold on, keep it. Oh, and we're using what's coming to us to define ourselves. Yeah. Marketing, advertising, entertainment, they've all taught us how to do this. And then we don't make the connection between our unhappiness, our stress, and what we've been taught, the conditioning that we've received. And so make this connection, and then you start going, wait a minute. I don't need that. I don't need them to be content in myself. Someone's just taught me that, and I've just blindly believed it. I spent the rest of my life trying to get it and thinking that it will make me happy. No, it doesn't make you happy. And you can't have it anyway, which is the big chuckle at, oh, I can't have it anyway. You can't keep anything or anyone anyway. Yeah. So once that's realized, whatever happens, nothing to lose. There is nothing that I can lose. I'm not
Thank you
sure
very
that
much.
question.
Yeah. So you have given us a lot of food for thought today.
Yeah, that's the thought. Yeah.
Yeah. So emotional intelligence, in brief, refers to the ability to identify and manage our own emotions as well as the emotions of others. And why is emotional intelligence important? It is a fact that emotions precede thoughts. When emotions run high, they just change the way our brains function, diminishing our cognitive abilities, decision making, and even interpersonal skills. So, understanding our emotions and the emotions of others help us to be more successful in both our personal and professional life. So, maybe you could guide us to a few minutes of meditation when our emotions are running wild or high. How do we deal with that?
Okay, so yeah, let's finish with a few moments of quietness and silence. And the aim of meditation is to, in a sense, to return to the center, and the center of our being, our consciousness, the same thing, really. And remember, you have two hearts, the heart of your body and the heart of your being. And when you're in the heart of your being, then you're quiet, you're silent, you're at peace, you're calm. And when you're in those natural states of being, then you feel it. Yeah. You don't think it, you just feel that way. Yeah. So meditation is the journey out of your mind back to the heart. Come out of what's on your mind, which is really where your emotions are created, and then come back to the heart, your natural state of being. And then when you come back to the heart and you're in your natural state of being, you're experiencing who you really are. You're not identifying with what's on your mind. You're not fearful of losing what you're thinking about. Usually you're thinking about people and situations and things which you fear, that you then fear losing, and you generate fear. Whereas in the heart of your being, calm, easy, you're being your natural self. So let's kind of go there. If you haven't meditated before, then step number one is just to sit in your chair, take the shape of your chair, and such a way that you're sitting up, not lazily, but up. And then relaxing your body. Just scan your body. Look away from the screen if you can, and just rest your eyes somewhere. If you look at the screen, you'll find it hard not to evaluate and judge and to name things all the time. But just rest your eyes somewhere. And ultimately, you're going to go beyond what you physically see, because you're bringing your awareness back to yourself, which is beyond physical things. So just relax your body in the chair, and then bring your awareness to your breath. So just follow your breath for a moment. So your attention, your awareness is on the cycle of breathing. Don't need to force, just watch. And as you watch your breath, your body will relax even more, and your mind will start to be less busy. Then bring your awareness to yourself and just spend a moment and see if you can be aware of yourself being aware. And then, in your mind, as if you are the painter on the canvas of your mind, Just create one thought, a simple thought. I am a being of peace. Allow that thought to pass across the screen of your mind, but very slowly. And then let that thought fade into the distance. Let it dissolve into the background. And notice what remains. There's a feeling of peace, of calm, of quiet. Now the mind is silent, vacant, and there's a stillness here at the heart of my being. Silent and still. Silent and still. And then bring your awareness back to the room around you, back to the here and now. But bring that stillness, bring that calm, bring it with you. So as you listen through these ears, hear from that stillness. As you look through these eyes, see from that stillness. That's good, thank you. You're muted, Jebin.
Sorry about that.
Okay.
I think that was very relaxing, and we need to practice that more and more often to be able to control our emotions. Thank you very much for joining us today. And our next session will be on Saturday, the 1st of May at 4 p.m. Jakarta time. I've dropped my number in the chat box, so do message me so I can update you with the details. And thank you once again, Mike, for joining us and sharing your wisdom. It was very enlightening.
Thanks to everybody. Take care. Have a great weekend.